Hi, and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is Vlogs About Nothing. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy night to join me. I really do appreciate it. Tonight, I want to talk about three things, and I'm hoping that I can remember each one of the things that I want to talk about before I start talking about them. That's real important. But before we do that, let's get to our, daily sort of ritual of some kind of joke, right? Because after all, what is life if nothing but a joke? So that was the joke. Okay, that's all that I got for you tonight. Just off the top of my head, that's what I'm working with. And as you can clearly tell, it isn't much. Anyways, I'm gonna stop. So let's talk about these three different things that I want to talk about. Okay, one of them is that, am I cross-eyed? So, so that's the first thing, okay? We're gonna get into that. And I'm very interested in exploring, in some self-exploration via video documentation, many different photos, and I'm sure a number of different real life testimonials that can attribute to the fact that your boy here might be cross-eyed. Anyways, so we'll talk about that in a second. I also want to get into, why I'm a little upset that it could entirely be possible that the government has used rap and moreover the entire music industry since its known inception as a psy-op. Okay, and again, it's just like secrets are only secrets until people talk about them, right? I mean, in terms of things that can be actually validated without question in substantial sorts of ways, right? To sort of reinforce what we're trying to present, right? Because those things are important. You can't just like decide, that you hate something or you hate someone or that you've come to this uh, conspiratorial in nature kind of a conclusion about things without being able to offer some kind of empirical evidence. At least that's how I feel about it, right? And finally, the third thing that I wanted to talk about, I entirely forgot about, and so hopefully at some point in the video I'm going to remember it. I knew that this was going to happen, but let's talk about it was so the third thing that we'll be talking about tonight is the fact that my math is super off, and in fact, this particular channel started 363 days ago on the 22nd of 2024. So let's kind of put that in the back of our minds as we begin to talk about whether or not your boy here is cross-eyed. So listen, on behalf of me, like on my own argument here, right? The fact is that when I recorded that video, I had just fallen from a tree, like about 40 feet. We had just spent the weekend in Chimayo, my roommate and I, over on Good Friday doing the pilgrimage. And also that same weekend, my roommate and I hung out with my cousins, with my cousin, Deborah. What's up, Deb? And and their family, my family, and it was kind of a thing. And so apparently, just a few days after that or something, I decided that this was the new journey that I was to embark on in life. Now, that being said, I might be cross-eyed. And listen, I'm a shameless guy. I think it's something that you kind of have to be. I mean, again, I got feelings, all right? I'm not a psycho. I'm not a sociopath. I care about many different things. Just because, a lot of entertainers, we make characters. We make characters for a reason. Sometimes we turn ourselves into characters because it's just easier to deal with things like that, right? I mean, again, at some point in our lives, we all got to kind of recognize that life just does not imitate art. Art is, in fact, life, and it's this crazy, vicious, perpetual cycle, and your boy William Shakespeare might have also told you that the whole world is a stage. I think there might be some scary truth to that. Like, and I'm not gonna get like super sci-fi conspiracy on you, but you know, I'm just saying. Anyways, have you ever felt like you were just a character in some game that somebody's randomly playing from some other side of the universe that like is, I'm just saying, and I'm joking again. Remember, this is a character. So, anyways, I also want to talk about now, again, I want to take up like the meat of this kind of content right tonight on this, and then we can get back to the whole debacle that I incurred with the mathematical error for the 1 year anniversary of this channel. Listen, I got a problem with governments picking on people. I think ultimately it doesn't take a rocket scientist. I've used this very stupid example before, in terms of just trying to convey the point that, like, the government is and will forever be responsible for the societies that are created on this earth. That's just, it's the way things work out. Things are just better organized than they are not. This is without question. What really matters is what leadership does, and how leadership often skirts the very responsibilities that are bestowed upon them. And it's not, a philosophical debate so far as it concerns corruption within any human sentience soul, dare I say. I mean, are we all just, cadavers that have this programmable sort of invisible, entity within us that can be corrupted and hacked at any time to do awful and nefarious things that, again, human beings simply would not do? And that's always been my argument, right? Is that, like, crime, problems, all of these different things are they're entirely things that the government could control if they wanted to. And the government cannot control things in the way that we'd all collectively like it to do if the very people that we elect to perform these very duties are people that are on Lucifer's A-team. It is, hey, listen, as much of a fan as I am of openly accepting everyone, and that includes the good old boy Lucy, I'm just saying, right? Because, like, after all, what kind of a free world would it be if we didn't hear anyone and everyone else's opinion? They might be entirely wrong and crazy and insane, but again, like, okay, your craziness has something to say. What do you have to say? I'd much rather hear you spew crazy things than imprison people and take away their civil rights and turn them into slaves, Like, come on, have some real courage. Like, at least explain to the world why rap could entirely be a government psyop. Now, here's the thing. Like, growing up in the 90s, because I'm, 37, super old, this relic of a man just barely getting by. That's how old that I am, right? To put that into perspective. But, like, listen, this is the same boy that was not only listening to, Infinite in 1996, but also grew up, with, like, 3-6 Mafia. My buddies, a lot of them were into 3-6, you feel me? Not to mention that, one of my, more endearing friends growing up as a child was one of the first juggalos that you'd ever know about. I mean, no, I'm not playing here. Like, I've had an assortment of different kinds of friends that have been attracted to different kinds of music. And the unfortunate thing about hip-hop, the unfortunate thing about rap, myself included in that, little suburbanite, Catholic, Roman, privileged boy over here bumping Infinite in his parents' middle-class neighborhood, all while the people who raised me did not curse, smoke, drink, or do anything that would otherwise be considered unworldly by us fellow Christians. With an asterisk on that, because, as us fellow Christians, we kind of pick and choose what sins that we're okay with committing, right? Anyways, holy macaroni. I think the idea that the government, invoked, put the power or influence behind the kind of executive upper class, most notably guys like the Klein fella and, Sean Puff Daddy Combs, who, interestingly enough, is not only himself allegedly an op, right, or a government secret agent or an informant or whatever, whatever you want to call it, but also his father might have just been, employed with the more nefarious side of Uncle Sam's team. Again, I think the interesting thing, right, always and forever in philosophy, I think in just any sort of sentience, is the age-old idea that good cannot exist without evil. Something I contemplate a lot. Like, can good exist when the government continues to push forward a narrative that is, sort of like super Darwinian, in that they've modernized the concept of strongest, like, survival of the fittest. They're putting this into real motion, aren't they? Like, here, guys, take these guns. Take all of these weapons. Let's see what happens. And sort of like all of those things are very stupid. Like, again, I just, why would a person do that, right? Like, but again, does any good come from any of these things? God, as an optimist, I gotta look at things in the clearer side of like the spectrum, right? I'm more of like an evil, like I'm more of like a nice guy than an evil one, so what I'm saying is that, like, it's just, you think that was a Freudian slip or something? Yeah, honestly, I'm an evil guy here. I'm a capital socialist who doesn't want anybody to do well in life, and good God, that's just all of what I really truly believe in. No, it's not. See, I really find humor in everything. And again, if I'm not laughing at myself, trust me, I know that there's more than a handful of people out there doing it for me, so why give them the pleasure, right? Anyways, the pleasure is all mine. So yeah, it's kind of messed up. It's not just kind of messed up. And does good come from any of this? I guess, sure, like the social awareness that one must have to, like, kind of anticipate that the very government that they're told that's supposed to care for them doesn't. It just doesn't. Like, and if it did, it would. Like, isn't it crazy that we live in a world where most of the problems could be solved overnight if certain people that had power would just be a little bit more human? Like truly. Do you see what I'm saying here? Like just how goddamn hard is it to be nice? How hard is it to be accepting? How hard is it to just want, more people than not to succeed in life? And I guess it's hard because there's just been no progress, really, in the modern era, in a way that would provide for a more equitable, opportunistic path for any of us to traverse. And I think that is not limited to the fact that the government has entirely been an agent of chaos since the very inception of, the good old Declaration of Independence. Although that could be argued, right? Because I'm more of on the constitutional law side of things, and the fact that the people who wrote the Constitution were, like, in fact, not just insinuating, but demanding radical change. But instead, because of the good old interpretation of Western law, we now know that even the Bill of Rights is debatable. Who knows what they meant? This was 300 years ago. God, don't you go to law school? It's sort of like, okay, I guess, not, right? Going back to that fascist thing, there's really only one truth, but I guess if you're just gonna sit here and argue with me forever about something that you do not like, nothing will ever change your mind, you feel me? Like, I don't know. The Bill of Rights applies to each and every citizen and, moreover, person that is here in the United States of America. And moreover, just for the record, the Constitution does not directly give states, it had not directly given states the same kind of power and recognition that it did to individual people that came here initially. So, again, like, maybe we can't even blame the Founding Fathers. Like, wouldn't it be both ironic and unironic if these old white guys actually wanted an equal world? Like, they had some kind of conscience because they had just, like, committed the G word to some native tribes here in North America's central continent that were unarmed and peaceful. So maybe they were like, hey, this could be a new way of, like, learning how to cooperate and not have to, sanction the unaliving of people on a government level. I'm more from that camp. I think these guys wanted radical change, right? But again, what they ended up with was some sort of subversion of, what again, in and of itself is like a really good idea. Jesus Christ, the Bill of Rights. Oh my God, like that sounds like an awesome idea. Oh, okay. You mean states have it too? Okay. You mean states have the same like what are we doing here? I mean, again, what we're doing is we're empowering the very people that again make the decisions to like literally go out of their way to be agents of chaos. Like I think that's like a literal definition of terrorism, by the way. Just for the record, Uncle Sam, I think it's really important that you rein it in a little bit. That's all that I'm saying, right? Because truly, I really, I don't know what the definition of that is, but like I feel like causing chaos and allowing your citizens to, fall through cracks, all while continuing to literally blame them. I think that's I think that's wrong. I don't think that's the truth. I think the truth is some things that we've just covered tonight, and it may be an inconvenient truth that rap music was in fact, made for not leisurely purposes, but in fact to be, antagonistical, right? I mean, after all, the very same people who own every single major record label also are hugely invested in all of the private prisons that are owned in here and operated in America. So, like, I don't know. I have no degree in economics. I'm kind of dumb, but that it seems like a conflict of interest, right? Or doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. Whatever. Sometimes I feel like, I just am just passing by and just watching the world burn, all while, like, seriously, people refuse to acknowledge kind of like what's going on, and it might seem as if nothing's going on, and if in fact you feel like that, the Ponzi scheme might be working a little too well because, young people, are not doing well. They're not set up for success. Black and brown people are not set up for success. Poor white people are picked on by rich white people. They're not set up for success. Women are not set up for success. So, like, I'm just saying, maybe one day, many more populations of people, like, will have more opportunity. So, I'm getting out of character. Hey, listen, thanks for watching my show. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, like, I kind of lost it at the end there with, like, structure and stuff, but these are impromptu speeches. This is an improv show, and so it's just kind of whatever comes out, and so that's what it was. But truly, I think it's kind of weird that, like, these kinds of major truths are coming to light. Not just like what your ex may or may not have done 20 years ago, but like actual things that matter, right? Like, the way that the government's fallen apart and is run by a criminal and just all of these different things, right? Like, again, I'm not trying to be extremist. Do I ever sound extremist? Because, like, I mean, okay, it could be said that I am leaning a little bit one way, but how can good be extreme? Like, I can't, like, I don't want to infantilize or, like, there's nothing special about wanting to do good things or wanting to be a decent person. These are not, like, exemplary things that one should strive to be. We should just be these things, So, like, I don't know. It's a tough thing sometimes to sort of talk about all of these things that would literally and should literally make us go crazy. Those are crazy things to think about. That, like, the government, the people, they're supposed to protect us, like not just the money and the piles of gold in Fort Knox and all the pretend currency locked up in other different various places all around the globe. That's literally not the point of life. Like, I don't care who says otherwise. It's just simply not. And I mean, it's kind of sad if you think that's what life is all about. Like, that's probably why you have problems, like, be a little more insightful. Anyways, thank you for watching my show. Thank you for being a part of this whole little experience. Like, seriously, my new subscribers, people that are engaging with old videos, like, all we have is a bright future ahead of us, and in the meantime, let's joke about things that we probably shouldn't joke about, and let's talk about things that make people feel uncomfortable, even though it's often quite literally the truth. So I'm sorry, not sorry. I hope that you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.